was your favorite? The newest one or
Oh,
the previous one?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not gonna pick a favorite. Um,
No, that's fair
I
enough.
I, I like them both. I've listened to the Crescent King. I'm on my second time through. I listened to it when I booked the interview, and I'm listening to it again. I was just listening to it, and it's what I like about it is it's like I like dumb death metal, like Cannibal Corpse, you know. Um, but you guys like the way you write it. Um, it's not just a punch in your face. Like it grabs you and wants you to take you on this journey, which some bands try to do. Not a lot of bands, but some bands try to do, and they don't. They they miss the mark somewhere.
Hmm,
But I
hmm.
feel like you guys do a really, really good job with it.
Oh, that's awesome. And hey, we're not judging Cannibal Corpse. I'm playing the same bass as Alex Webster, so it's
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one.
Now I love it though. Like I went to see Obituary Saturday night.
Hmm, hmm.
Like, you know, I I love good dumb death metal, but I also love, stuff that makes you like really think through it. What
Where
about
are you based though?
I live in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, all right.
So what about you? Like out of the three albums, is there one to you that is your favorite?
I mean, I'm the most recent addition to the band, right? So the most recent one is actually the only one I'm featured on.
Yeah.
So to me, that's maybe it's maybe not as objective as it could have been, but of course it has to be my favorite. I think though there's something to the songwriting that's more cohesive to me. It's I mean we all get better in time, right?
Yeah.
Provided of course we practice and we play together a lot, so you get to know each other better and what clicks with who, etc. But I think there's something also because it was a conceptual album, so we put a lot of challenges in front of ourselves, but we also put sort of a goal. There was a start and a finish to this concept album, story wise at least.
Yeah.
But we had to settle on the track list quite early on, and we had to settle on um, sort of the moods that we were going for and the different tracks, and then the lyrics to, of course, complete that picture. But um, so we've been quite critical along the way in terms of what goes in which track and how does it all fit together, more so than in with the previous sounds. So I think it's better songwriting on this one. Honestly, I think it's there's a silver lining. Uh, what you see with a lot of metal bands, especially death metal bands, is sometimes you can get a lot of uh, what I think we like to refer to it as riff salad,
Hmm.
where you just have you have a cool riff here, you have a cool riff here, and you go like this, and then you have in the end you have a track.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's less of this on this one, where there's a purpose to each and every riff, and it's taking you somewhere, and it's communicating something. Um, so yeah, there's definitely good moments on all albums, absolutely. Also on some of the first tracks, the first ever Livlos tracks, which is amazing to play live still, and some of them, especially some of the shorter ones, are just absolute blasts to play live.
Yeah.
Um, and people still dig them, so it's a really cool thing to bring to live shows.
Well,
But I'm really psyched to go out and play the most recent ones.
what's that look like for you guys when you getting out on the road?
We played this Friday. We played. There's a couple of good venues in Copenhagen. We played the one called Amager, which is really. It's a really cool place. It was part of a festival called Copenhagen Metal Festival. I can't remember how many bands were on the roster, but it was like a 2 day
Okay.
possibly even a 3-day thing actually. But we headlined the middle day, so to speak. We played there Friday. It was absolutely amazing, completely packed, and it was one of the better shows in recent times. It was really, 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 really good. The
Awesome.
crowd was there. The weekend before, we played a smaller venue, which was also completely fine. But we played very late. We played at midnight, um, and you could sort of, it's timing is a funny thing because if it's too early on, people are not in the groove yet. But if it's too late,
Too
then
late.
people are kind of I mean, they've had their fill of death metal for the day, right? And they just want to
Or
go home,
alcohol, they're like,
or
it's
alcohol for
it's
that
time
matter,
to
right?
go home, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually getting ready to go to it. After we're done, I'm gonna go to a show that's hour and a half away. So we're gonna
Mhm.
drive, and I'm like, bands don't start till 9. I'm like, shit, I'm not gonna get home till 1 or 2 in the morning. Like, and then I gotta get up and take kids to school tomorrow. Like,
Yeah,
oh no, but that's part of it though.
it's part of it. I mean, we we have a lot of shows coming up now in the fall, late summer and fall, and it's weekends, pretty much all of it, which is so you could call us weekend warriors in that sense. But it can be brutal at times, especially. I mean, if you go northern Germany or you go Copenhagen, you're not going to leave the venue till 2 in the morning, right?
Right.
Because you have to sell merch, you have to be there, and it's fun as well, right? You're there, you want to hang out, you want to network with the other bands, but it's 1 or 2 in the morning before you get to drive home, and then you have maybe 3, 4 hours, depending on how far you went,
Yeah.
right? We played around Hamburg in Germany. No, it was past Hamburg. It was closer to Berlin. Metal Frenzy Festival in Germany it was called. It was like a 6 or 7 hour drive. We drove down in the morning, we played, and we drove down back after the show. And people had to go to work the day after. It was brutal.
That is
Um,
miserable. Yeah.
but the really good shows they justify all of it. Like the one we did on Friday, it
Yeah.
was just I'm still high from that show, right? It was absolutely amazing. Not in that sense, but
Yeah. Yeah.
riding the high. It was really really good. So you have shows like that, and then it's all worth it.
How many people do you think were at the show on Friday?
Difficult to tell. I think there's like a 1100 capacity. If you bring the second floor, there were people on the second floor, but not full. I I want to say like 800, 900 maybe, but
That's a
yeah, it could be a bit less.
that's a good show though.
It's a really good show. That was a really good show.
Especially, at these lower levels, you go and you play a show and you're like, there's 10 people here, 20 people here. You're like,
Yeah,
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 you
yeah.
know.
We played those as well, but not in the recent years,
Yeah.
luckily. So at
Yeah.
least not in Denmark.
That's good. How often, like, not how often, are you all planning on coming to the States to tour with the Crescent King?
Oh yes, we would love to. Right now, there's no concrete plans for it. Right now, we're planning a European tour, and then we're planning, obviously, a domestic tour. Um, and the States, we've spoken to a lot of other bands here that has done the US thing, and it can be rough.
Yeah.
And it's because it's just a whole nother thing, right? And the setup is completely different, and um, we would love to do it at some point. It needs to be under the right circumstances. So we're kind of looking for a way in, or someone who can sort of come and say, yes, we'll get this set up, and this is going to be the type of venue that you're playing. And we would love to. It's a lot of work to set it
Yeah.
up ourselves.
Yeah, I feel like there's
Um,
some good bands out there that could, bring you guys on for a good States tour just to help with get people in because the music that you guys put out it's phenomenal. And I feel like it would do really well over here.
Ah, that's good to hear. I think you're right, though. I think that would be the way in to do like a support thing for. Doesn't necessarily have to be a US based band either, right? It can just
Right.
be something that is doing
Someone that
well
can
in the
draw.
US.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone that can draw. Because it's the risky thing, right? We were going back and forth on plans for the Crescent King release tour, on doing how whether we can pull a headline show in Southern Europe, and we don't know. I mean, it could go both ways, right?
Yeah.
It could be amazing, but it could also not be amazing. And um, I think the chances of it not being amazing if we went on our own to US, that would be bold. I think so. It would be really really cool to go with someone who can draw, and then we can support them on the tour.
Yeah, I think that would be, key for you guys to get that foot in the door
Hmm.
in a good
Hmm.
support slot over here, because you get the right support slot and your fan base will go over here
Oh
with,
yes,
you
oh
know,
yes.
that
We
would,
saw most of us actually. We saw Cannibal Corpse came by. I think it was last year, and they brought Storm Ruler with them. And I had never heard of Storm Ruler
oh
before.
yeah, they're fucking awesome,
Uh,
aren't they?
they're fucking awesome. That was really, really, really good. And
Yeah.
I think two of us ended up buying merchandise and just wearing it to our shows. And it was absolute. I've been listening so much to Storm Ruler since. Uh, so it's a great way of just getting to know more bands.
Yeah, it is, and that's, I always try to tell people I like to go to shows early because I want to see those support
Mm.
acts, even if it's if it's a international band, they sometimes have that local opener. Well, I want to be there and see the local opener, and I want to see who that direct support is. And I can't tell you how many bands I've seen them just like absolutely blown away with, in those support slots. I think and I wish more people would get there earlier to see those bands, because it would just perpetuate the arts so much more.
Yeah, they're hungry as well, right? The support band is that they
Yeah.
have something to prove. Um, we deserve to be here and to support this lot. So yeah, there's definitely something to it. It's a tendency here as well that people sort of show up for the main act. I
Yeah.
guess it's a global phenomenon, right? But of course, you have a lot of enthusiasts who are there for the same reasons you mentioned. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's habit, right? For a lot of people. You
yeah,
talk to them and they're like, the opening bands always suck. It's like you're not seeing the right fucking opening bands.
no, no.
The one time you decided to show up, it was not a band that you gelled with, but man, you probably missed 10 other ones that are absolutely out of this world.
Yeah, exactly. Like Stone Ruler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like one of the guys, there's a local guy here that plays guitar in Storm Ruler, and
Oh, really?
yeah, he's in 3 or 4 different bands. Always, like, every time you see him, you're like, "Hey, Nick," and he's like, I'm going out on tour with this band, or I'm going on that band. And you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
slow
He's one
down,
of
dude.
those.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go, man. It's
It's
good
usually
times.
the drummer, right? It's usually the drummer who's in like 15 different bands.
Yeah. Because there's no other drummers.
Yeah, I think that's it. They're a rare breed,
Yeah.
especially the good ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I think that's a universal thing too, right? A good drummer is like, I just talked to a buddy. Well, I saw a buddy post and he's like, what did he play? He played Desert Fest New York this weekend with
mhm.
another band. And he's like, yeah, this was my debut with this band. And I'm like, how many fucking bands are you in? You've got like 5 other projects. And now this, he goes, well, I refuse to take ADHD medicine.
Yes, yes, yes.
So for like what's your like musical background?
I mean, it varies a bit depending on who of us you would ask. If you ask me personally, um, I've done a lot of black metal. Uh, but I've also done a lot of like classic heavy metal, like old school Priest, Halloween, stuff like that. Iron Maiden, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, so I've been a bit back and forth, but like from a style perspective and from what I listened the most to, I came late into death metal actually. So it was mostly either the totally classic old school stuff, or we went straight to Norwegian black metal. Um, so this, I mean, when I was younger, it was always like I wanted a mix of something. Like I found just death metal to not be as interesting to me. I wanted it to be a mix. It could be death metal mixed with something else. I ended up listening to some weird. Much of it was Finnish for some reason, but and the Swedes have a lot of really really good like more melodic death metal stuff as well. You have
Yeah.
sort of the the old school. You have the Göteborg scene. You have the Stockholm scene, and it's two very different styles, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, so coming into Livlos, it was a lot of it was a new thing for me. I was not used to playing like that. Um, but now it's been a while, and it's so fun to play, and the guys are just a blast to be in a band with.
Hell yeah.
So it's really really good, and I'm just now that we're more of a unit in terms of the songwriting as well. Little pieces of black metal are sort of going in there into the mix. We had one reviewer of one of the singles stating something along the lines of Livlos have never sounded so Norwegian before, and we took that as the biggest compliment because it was like it was those little traces of Norwegian culture. I'm from Norway originally, having moved to Denmark with yeah, and playing with the band now. But I think if you ask the other guys, it's more what you would expect in terms of how Livlos sounds like. There's a lot of Black Dahlia murder in there. There's a lot of revocation, a lot of silosis, um, and then obviously older, more old school death metal. You mentioned obituary, but probably more along the lines of death.
Yeah.
Um,
Another right, and it's like you look at some of that old school death metal. All of the bands that you mentioned, right, are fucking phenomenal.
yes,
You know,
absolutely.
Silosis, Revocation. I fucking love Revocation. Um,
Revocation in particular, yeah.
yeah, just
And then Job for a Cowboy, but I mean, Job for a Cowboy is just absolutely, especially the new that for me at least. I think some of the newer stuff that they put out. The most recent album is actually freaking amazing, and
honestly, I haven't even listened to it.
it's so
I
good. It's
I
so good.
probably haven't listened to them in 7 or 8 years. They did
Yeah,
a who they were on tour, I think, with like Hatebreed. The only time I saw them live, and I was just like blown away. Like, holy shit, you guys were fucking great.
yeah.
You know,
But they haven't put anything out in a long time, right?
I think
So
they
it
just
was,
put something new out. Uh,
yeah, yeah. I think this year, I believe they put out a new one, but before that,
yeah,
it's been a
it's
long
been
time coming.
probably 10 years or so. Yeah,
Yeah, something like that. And once you go into the rabbit hole, I really love how Nick Chitten's plays in it, and then you sort of figure out what other projects he's been a part of, and the
yeah.
whole what are they called, nuclear power trio and stuff like that, which is just so much over the top, but it's also just yeah, it's really good to see.
It's awesome, and like all those
Yeah,
guys in that in the power trio are fucking phenomenal musicians. Greg
absolutely.
Greg Burgess from Allegiant, like that. That's another band that I absolutely adore. Like they do the tech death thing, and I'm I'm always like I can play guitar, and then I see them, and I'm like, no, I can't. I suck.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
exactly. When you become humbled like that, right? We went to see the whole band because Archbar came by last year, uh, in a town not far from here, and I can't remember if all of us went, but at least the majority of us went down to see Archbar. It was so fun because the venue was like half full, just looking around, I mean, you recognize everyone
Yeah.
because who was there? It was all the Danish metal bands. They
Yeah.
were just there. It was almost obvious because you could see who they were standing in front of, and it was like matching whichever instrument they played. And people, it was almost like they had their notebooks out. And I was no better. I was standing in front of Jared Smith and just watching him play that six string. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but and
Um,
I think for any musician, when other musicians are there watching you, that has got to be the biggest compliment,
oh yes.
like, oh, I guess I can play. This is fucking
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
That's what everyone kind of
Yeah.
hopes for. So
Yeah, you're right.
on the Crescent King, um, are you guys putting what kind of physical copies are coming out with that?
I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to show you. I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yes.
Um, we have we just brought these home, and it's just so cool to see. So this is the vinyl, obviously, and there a couple of different colors. I picked the black one, but there's like a couple of other colors that just look really cool. The lighting is probably really bad, and then obviously compact disc. And then all digital formats. There's like a campaign going now with a pre-order, and if you do that, then you can download the copy. I believe 1 or 2 days before.
Sweet.
Um, yeah, but we're not doing tape or anything. Or yeah, I
I
don't know whether to call it new school or old school anymore. But we're not doing tape.
like a lot of bands are moving to super limited like tape
Yeah,
production, doing like
yeah,
50
yeah.
or 100 copies, and it's like cool, but I remember the days of having to sit there with your pencil and
Rewind it.
yeah, like no, I don't want that anymore,
No.
but I'll totally go for the vinyl. How many colors of the vinyl are you guys putting out?
We're doing four, I believe. Four colors: black and petroleum. No, three colors. Yeah.
What are they?
Um, it's black and it's a petroleum like greenish, and then there's a marble yellow one. It's I'm so one of the other guys should probably have answered that question because I just want to put the
Look,
music out, and I don't even have a vinyl player at home. So I should.
you absolutely
Uh,
should.
I should.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sitting on, I don't know, probably, I always say a couple thousand records. I don't know how
really
many. I've got a fucking lot
nice,
though. Yeah.
nice.
My wife's like, you have six of that one. Like, yeah, it's because they're all different color vinyl, and
Are
this
you
one
one of
has,
those? Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, one of those. Yeah, it's not amazing for my checkbook, that's for sure.
No. Does your wife have any records in there as well, or is it?
I've bought her a couple, but generally she doesn't want to come into my area because it's like
No.
there's so much. So she's not real big into metal.
Mm.
Um, she listens to Grateful Dead and Dave Matthews and that kind of stuff. But uh, some bands she's really turned on to, like
Mhm.
Deftones. As a
Yeah, yeah.
family, we go, we love to go see Deftones. The kids go have a good time.
Nice.
Another one's Battlecross. Like I wish those dudes were still together. Um, they were always fun. Just go some just old school fucking thrash, throw
Yeah.
down, and to have the whole family getting down. I'm like, yeah. Um, so
How old are the kids?
well,
Oh.
I say kids now they are 17 and 20.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Then you can actually go and throw down to a thrash
Yeah,
concert.
yeah. I'm like, hey, you're driving because I'm not.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Oh, that's
Uh,
cool though.
yeah.
Was
They
We
got,
played Copenhagen last year, which was a big, big show for us. Very, very like it's the place you want to go for if you play music in Denmark, right? Or hard music in Denmark.
yeah,
And I brought my son with me, which was amazing because club shows, he's 5. Uh, Club shows he cannot go to, and it's going to be a while because they're always late in the evening, right? And
yeah,
he's not going to be awake at that point. And um, but we played quite early in the afternoon, and my son was there to see, which was some. My wife brought him, and they were sitting on the hill, like far back. But they had the big screens and everything, and it was really fun. Just, I think he was bored after like 2 or 3 songs, but then for me at least, it was really, really cool to know that he was out there
yeah.
sitting somewhere and actually seeing this. Um, so that was an amazing experience. I hope I can take him to the French concerts as well at some point.
I'm sure you'll be able to. I did. You know, those experiences with the kids, I think for me are second to none. Like
Mm.
my daughter's first heavy metal show was Max and Igor
Mm.
Cavalera doing the Return to
Yeah,
Roots. And
that's
like
cool.
for her, like we walk in and a bunch of there was like 2 local openers. They see her. She was 8 or 9 at the time, her little blue hair, and they're like, "You're the coolest thing ever." They're giving her drumsticks and signed CDs, and
Yeah.
she was like, "This is so awesome."
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, we took her to God, she's been to a lot of metal shows. We took her to see Super Joint with Phil and Jimmy Bauer, and
Oh, really?
yeah.
Nice.
So I've got a little video of her. She's just standing there banging her fucking head. I'm like, like proud papa moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it does something to you, right? Because I think no December we played. It was like a big venue in Copenhagen called Vega, uh, which was a headline show for us, and it was a big thing.
Yeah.
Um, and we had been looking forward to that show for such a long time, and it was. Um, Halfway through the show, I noticed there's a group of kids in front because there's the stage and then there's the fence and then
Yeah.
there's the crowd. But in front of the fence, there's like a group of, I want to say 5 or 6 kids, probably no more than 8, 9 years old, and a couple of dads were there, and they were just so into it. And I have to go and fist bump these kids. I don't care if I'm playing all the wrong notes right now. I have to interact with these
Yeah.
guys. It does something to you, I think, after you have kids on your own. But they were just so into it, and it's amazing to see because we don't normally have a lot of those
Right. Well,
so so young people at the show.
it really is because you think like I always think of the longevity of a
Mhm.
band, and if as a band you find those the younger generation to enjoy your music, it's going to help perpetuate, help give you longevity because those kids are going to
Yeah.
be like, I remember that dude that came and fist bumped me, or I got a guitar pick, or
Yeah, a set list.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I'm bad about set lists. I've got, a couple here and I've got a stack over here. Like every time I go, we went to see, who do we go see? High on Fire a couple of weeks ago.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I was like, I should grab a set list. And I'm like, nah, like I've already got a couple from them. I'm good. Someone comes up and goes, I got a set list. And I was like, cool. Like that's fucking awesome. I'm super glad you got a set list. Like,
Yeah.
just don't rub it in my face because it makes me want to take it and run. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Do you guys do when you play live? Do you do a physical set list?
Yes, we do. We do. On the rare occasion that we forget to print them beforehand, then we draw them by hand and add little personal drawings to them if we have the time to. I don't know which would be more of a collectible item, if anything, but yeah, we do. We have physical copies.
The one
So we normally have,
with your art on it would be the more sought after.
yeah, probably the hand drawn
Yeah.
ones. But yeah, we do them, and then spread them around the stage so you can see. Um, but yeah, and then the sound guy has one, and the lighting guy has one, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Everyone's
Also
got
because we
one.
changed the sets up quite a bit, so it's because if you play the same set for like a year, then you tend to okay, I remember the order of things, but at least these past couple of shows have been of different length, and so you sort of change the set list accordingly,
Yeah.
um, trying to get the right dynamics of the show and introduce, especially now because the full album is not out yet, so you sort of have to introduce the singles that have been released because you want to play them live, right? But how do they fit in with the old tracks? And we can't have, it's not that we have so many slow songs, you can't really call them ballads, but if you
Yeah.
have two slow songs back to back, maybe it kills a little bit. You have to build up to it. um yeah, I mean, we consider our sets quite a lot.
That's good.
um
I think a lot of bands, I like when a band really thinks thoroughly about their set because it's a lot more cohesive, and you can see it in the crowd's face too. Like they can just really go along with it.
yeah, but like if you get the opening right and you get the ending right, you've come a long way, right? But if you have the proper dynamics in that middle section as well, then I think you're good. um but and there's a lot of, I wouldn't say slower tracks, but there's a big it's a dynamic album, I think, the newer one.
Yeah.
um so making set lists once that entire album is out is going to be interesting. um, Also because people want to hear some of the older stuff as well, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a battle for the rehearsal space. We're gonna what to play when and how.
Gonna have to learn, make sure you know all the songs really good, and
Oh
then when you
yes,
you go
oh
out, it's
yes,
like, okay, we can just pick and choose.
yeah.
It makes you wonder about bands like Metallica or Iron
Hmm.
Maiden that have
Hmm.
such a vast catalog. Like, how do you do it? How do you
Yeah,
decide we're gonna play this 2 or 3 hour set tonight and not something else?
yeah, that's crazy. When you have a catalog like that, it's really, and especially the bands you mentioned, right? Iron Maiden, how many albums they put out? Like
13.
13.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
That's rich.
Yeah,
Yeah. My wife and I went to see Judas Priest in Barcelona. Judas Priest, Saxon, and Uriah Heep in Barcelona a couple
right
of,
on.
what was that, like 2 months ago or something like that. And that's also amazing. And because they just released the most recent one, right? Which is an amazing album, by the way.
Yeah,
And of course, they have to play a lot of songs from that album. But I think a lot of the people there just want to hear the old stuff, right?
right.
They want to hear you playing Breaking the Law. They want to, I mean, and they did, obviously. But it must be difficult to choose when you have so much music to,
Yeah,
yeah,
Judas
in your catalog.
Judas Priest is here in just under 2 weeks, I think.
It's
They're
probably the same tour, right?
probably, but
Invincible Shield, I believe.
yeah,
Invincible Shield tour.
they're playing louder than life.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so I mean that's the last time they played louder than life. I think Richie had a his heart exploded and they had to rush him to the hospital.
Ah, yeah. Okay. Jesus.
He's probably going, I don't know that I want to get on that fucking stage again.
No.
No.
Understandable.
Yeah. Now that's a festival you guys should get on. That would be freaking
I
awesome.
mean, we'll be there. It's, we're just
100
waiting on the invitations.
It was 180,000 people last year.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's insane.
Dude, it was so packed. Like I was in the VIP section and we're still like, can you scoot over a little bit? Like we're
Yeah.
outside. There should be plenty of room. Nope.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. the biggest crowd we had was last year at Copenhagen. I believe it was like 15,000. It's always difficult to tell when it's a festival like
Yeah.
that, but right around 14, 15, 16,000. And that was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I remember being in backstage, just being once you hit the stage, sort of the nervousness that you have, the anxiety that you have, it just disappears and it's overtaken by adrenaline, I think. But I remember being backstage that day, and there was a couple of us in the same boat. It just not much talking going on, just sitting there, barely eating lunch, and there's a couple of other good acts there that day. So, but backstage was also a little bit weird on that particular day because Guns N' Roses were playing the same day, and they had sort of taken half backstage reserved for them alone. So it was a little bit
That
odd.
that is
Uh,
weird. Mine, all mine, you get out. Like,
yeah, exactly. But it was absolutely fantastic, and it's just such a good feeling because you can be so nervous, and once the intro track goes on, you're like, okay, I have a couple of seconds to compose myself, and then hell breaks loose, and then it all just disappears, and it doesn't matter how many people there are, right? Of course, it's a daunting thing when there's that many people. I can don't not even begin to imagine
yeah,
180,000 people. That must be absolutely insane.
it's
But I would
fucking,
imagine you sort of go numb at some point, right? Because okay, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people, but if the same feeling of just nervousness being overtaken by adrenaline, then you can do that as well. I would hope at
yeah,
some point.
I would imagine, when you get to that level where you can play in front of, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, I'm sure it's kind of like you said, right? The intro track goes on and it just almost flips a switch in your brain and you
Yeah,
go, okay, time to go to work.
yeah. We have a good friend in another local band here. He's a wonderful guitar player, and has been doing a lot of obscure death metal projects and bands. And he was a stand-in for Volbeat on their tour. I can't remember if it was this year in spring. I think it was. But it was really interesting to hear his take on this because he's been playing club shows like we have, obviously, and
Yeah.
but nowhere near the crowds that come to see a band like Volbeat, right? And all of a sudden he was playing multiple shows with them, and it was South America, and it was like not tens of thousands of people, but like 60, 70, 80,000 people. Um, and he did that, and it was just and playing other people's songs and
Yeah.
playing, yeah. It
Getting
was
off
really interesting to
stage.
hear.
He's changing
Yeah.
his underwear because there's shit stains from he's like walks out there like, oh shit. Oh.
But it was fun to hear his take on it, right? Because yeah, he's coming from something else, and all of a sudden just playing these massive venues, right?
Yeah, so funny. I was at a show. I think I went to see Crowbar, and it was
Mhm.
this little small club. There was, I don't know, 100, 200 people there. It wasn't many at all. And some dude, I'm talking to some dude, and um, I'm like, "What do you do?" He's like, "Oh, I manage some bands." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, who do you manage?" He goes, "Oh, I manage Seven Dust and Volbeat." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing here in Louisville?" He goes, "Oh,
Yeah,
I actually live here." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. I had no
yeah,
idea."
that's
So
amazing.
so funny. And I don't think, I'm really realizing like now how small the world of heavy metal is. Like I said, we were at Obituary Saturday night and I was talking to the drum tech and I'm like, "Oh, and this dude, I was like Jeremy Kling just um took over the Overkill drum spot
Mhm.
at least for the next couple of tours." And I'm like, "Oh, like I think that's fucking awesome for him." And he goes, "Oh yeah, dude, he called me and like asked me to be his drum tech on these tours, but I've got this going on. And I'm like, oh, you fucking know him? He's like, yeah. Like so weird how small that world is.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's a charming thing, and in Denmark as well. I mean, most of the bands know each other, and I feel like there's not a lot of. You would expect there to be some sort of rivalry, or oh, we don't like those guys, but it's at least to my to me, it seems like there's very little of that. The scene is very supportive, and it's the same people you run into all the time, right? So it has to be that way.
Yeah.
And not even just the bands, then there's the lighting guys and all the technicians
Hmm.
and the stage managers and everything. And it's just really nice when you played a festival and then you come to a club show and, oh, okay, it's the same stage manager we had on that festival. That's amazing. I like that guy. Or so the scene is not very, very big, and there's a charm to that
Well,
that I really appreciate.
yeah, me too. And you mentioned everyone being super supportive.
Yeah,
I think as a whole, that's what makes these communities get bigger,
yeah.
and more involved because everyone's like cheering for everyone, and you have a conversation. And I always ask, like, what are some bands that you're listening to you think other people should listen to? Because I want other, like not maybe not well-known bands to get some,
Mhm.
maybe get some more listens or whatever on Spotify.
Mm,
So what are you
yeah.
listening to now that
Yeah, that was a natural segue. Yeah, what am I listening to right now? I'm actually listening a lot. If it has to be like lesser known, I guess, coming from your question. Right now, I'm sort of stuck in. I do a lot of the A Job for a Cowboy, the most recent album I've listened to so much, um, and actually a lot of Revocation as well.
Mm,
Um, and then there's a band we played with them on Friday actually called Jotun from Denmark. It's not death metal. I don't know what to call it. It's more prog. Uh, they paint beautiful pictures with sound.
okay.
Um, Wonderful band and amazing guys as well.
How do you spell it?
IOTUN.
Okay.
Double N. Yeah, I can write it to you in the chat here if I can.
No, I think
Like
saying it
that.
is fine. Oh. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Um, yeah, a band here that, yeah, we played with them a couple of times. I know the guys quite well, but they are absolutely amazing. Um, yeah, what else? I'm very much into movie scores right now as well. So I'm listening to a lot of movie scores.
Okay.
Some of the old Hans Zimmer stuff and yeah, Ramin Djawadi stuff. Yeah, well, lesser known bands. Storm Ruler for one. I don't think at least here, not a lot of people know them very well.
Yeah.
Um, so those are quite. And then now you have the Cannibal Corpse in the background there, but Conquering Dystopia. Um, I really love the instrumental stuff, and the Conquering Dystopia stuff with Alex Webster on bass. To
Oh
me,
yeah.
is just absolutely phenomenal music.
That's that.
Um,
It's always funny that I like you. I like to see people's like side projects because you
mhm.
find some just awesome bands, from on the side projects.
Yeah, there's quite a few of those that are really really good. There was also Nurgle from Behemoth had a side project. What was it called? Me and That Man, I believe,
Oh
which
yeah,
was
it was real dark, but it wasn't like metal
yeah,
at all.
it was like country. It had like a
Yeah.
certain country bluesy vibe to it, but then the lyrics were dark as hell, and I quite appreciate that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people did.
Um,
That was some good shit.
yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking about we keep saying Revocation. I don't know if you can see it, but Revocation was on this show.
No, I can't see that. Oh, they're right there.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a good package.
Yeah, it was a
Cannibal Corpse Revocation.
yeah, and Shadow of Intent and Whitechapel. That was a good show.
Ah, nice, perfect.
One of my favorite
Yeah.
shows. We went to Hollywood. God, this is 11 years ago actually. We flew
Mhm.
out to Hollywood. Death Angel was doing a CD release show, and it was Death Angel, 3 Inches of Blood, Battle Cross, Revocation, and Diamond Plate.
Okay, nice. That's pretty stacked.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
we're not missing that show. My wife's like, you
no.
sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm not missing that show at all.
Ah, that's good. That's really good. Um,
So, what were
I,
some?
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. I'm trying to think of lesser known bands as well.
Oh, I was just going to
Oh,
ask what like some of your, early on was it, did you get into like traditional heavy metal first and then it forayed into other things?
um, yeah, to some extent. To some extent, I believe I started with Metallica. Uh, yeah, I remember my mom had heard about. I was a kid. My mom had heard about this hard rock metal band that had recorded with a symphony orchestra, and she wanted that for Christmas. And I remember I went and I picked up S&M and I gifted it to her. And then I put it on one day after school, and she came home and she was like, "Ah, what's this noise?" And that was the CD that I had gifted her, and then that ended up being my CD. So I listened to that for the longest time. And then later in the teens, I got a good friend, a Finnish friend actually, who introduced me to a lot of extreme stuff. I remember he's that I had to sort of work with myself on because I couldn't necessarily listen to it for that long at a time, but there was something to it. I remember he sent me I can't remember the album title of it, but it's the Nile one with all the screaming women and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, one of the Egyptian themed ones. Uh, Kafir is one of the first tracks, so you could sort of make it out from there. But to me, that was very, very extreme, and I could, to begin with, I could listen to like 30 or 40 seconds, and then but I kept coming back, and then it was a minute or 2 minutes, and
Yeah.
then it was one track or three tracks. Um, and then it sort of went in an extreme way there. I got into Spawn of Possession as well. Um, and then probably dialed it back a little bit. And I went back, and for a couple of years, it was a lot of Manowar, it was a lot of Iron Maiden, it was a lot of Judas Priest, but the more extreme stuff was still out there somewhere, and I would put it on every now and then. Some of the earlier Behemoth work, and then the world of sort of black metal opened up. So I would, for a long time, listen to a lot of Torque, Gorgoroth, Emperor, Anthems to the Welcome at Dusk. I've listened to so much, which is just a fantastic album. Um, and especially now that because I've never had a place to put it, the inspiration from
Yeah.
those bands, it has been too extreme for my previous project, a lot of them at least. But now I have somewhere to put it, and I think that's really cool. So I've had in the recent years now, I've had so much reason to go back and revisit some of the extreme stuff that I heard in the past. Um, and some of it is still extreme, yes, and some of it is sort of like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. It's
Yeah.
not as bad as I remember it, right? When you're first introduced to Cannibal Corpse when you're a teen, right? It's very
Oh
it's
yeah.
very aggressive. Um,
Yeah, my
but now you can.
introduction was Chris Barnes, Chris Barnes
Hmm.
era Cannibal
Hmm.
Corpse, and it was like,
Hmm.
what the hell is this?
What the hell
Like,
is this?
oh sh oh shit,
Yeah.
this is
Hmm.
weird. But and of course, Corpse Grinder does really well with Cannibal Corpse, and Barnes
Yeah,
is
yeah.
doing 6 Feet Under. They're going on
Hmm.
tour with Nile here in a couple of months.
Nice. Yeah.
Pretty
It's
stoked for that. But it looks like the look on your face just talking about, going back and listening to some of that
mhm.
old shit and being able to plug some of it into, Livlos. The look on your face is like, I love where I'm at right now. This is fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a really good place to be, and it feels like it's a unit working together, and we have the same goals with it. Um, and we have, of course, people drawing a little bit of different directions musically, but I think that's overall a good thing,
Hmm.
that you sort of have inspiration from other sources as well, because it's very easy if you're like honing in on one band, or it's just, oh wow, we just want to be like, we've talked about Revocation, we want to be Revocation, right? then
Right.
then it's very easy to become so honed in on that that you sort of become, we have Revocation at home, and that's not what we want to do, right? um, so at least some of us are also, because once you start learning more and more music theory, some of the classic stuff is fantastic. I've gone and revisited some of the old Bach pieces and tried to sort of transcribe it to the bass guitar, and just seeing what what is there to gather from some of the old pieces written for a cello originally.
Yeah,
And some of it is dark, and some of it is really, really, it's a good challenge from a technical perspective, but it's also a really good challenge from a riff making, songwriting perspective, because it's, yeah, we're joking with some of the riffs and calling them baroque and roll because it's old school baroque. Um, but it's really good when you can sort of take from different sources, and even I've mentioned some movie scores earlier, right? If you can take some of the sort of picture painting, storytelling aspect of that movie scoring is doing so well, you can put it into a heavy metal perspective. Because if you just have hard hitting riffs all the time, then, well, that can be good as well, but that's a certain sound, right? And if you
yeah,
can sort of paint stories on top of that with lead guitars or vocals, or bass passages that sort of support whatever else is going on, then I think you're looking at an interesting concept.
I
um,
agree. You know, The Eternal. Are you familiar with The Eternal?
yes, yes.
Their new album is really fucking good.
Yeah,
Same thing, right? Like they they paint these, it's like these broad brushstrokes, with the
yeah.
music, and you can visualize everything. Um, that's what the great thing about music is you have bands that can do that, right? You guys do it
Hmm.
very well also.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and then you have bands that just punch you in the face with their big dumb riffs, and you're like,
Yeah, yeah,
I fucking love this.
yeah, yeah.
What
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
Nope, you.
The selection is so big now as well, right? And it's so easy to find stuff, and because that was very different. I mean, yeah, people that are older than I am as well, it must have been more difficult as well, right? But I was the Finnish friend that I had that introduced me to some of the more extreme stuff. I don't know if I had discovered that on my own, if he
Right.
hadn't sort of held it in front of me and said, you should listen to this stuff because it's really good. And he was someone that I looked up to, and he was older than I was as well, and it was like, okay, this person thinks this is a good product. I'm not there yet. I cannot appreciate it for what it is, because to me it's just noise, but he says it's good, and I can hear there's something to it that I would be able to appreciate at some point. And just sort of working towards being able to appreciate it to, yeah, fully. I think that's a good journey to be on. um,
Yeah. push your
And
boundaries.
nowadays there's so it's so easy to find exactly what you're looking for almost.
Yeah,
There's so much music out there, and there's independent releases, and there's very specific labels that only put out grindcore or
yeah,
poor grind. I mean, there's so many different subgenres out there.
yeah.
Right? So there's a place for everyone, I guess.
There is. I mean, I think one of the oldest things with music that I remember is it doesn't matter how good or bad your band is. There's someone out there that's gonna like it,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? So I had I had an album show up one time. This is many, many years ago. God, when was it? It was probably 20 years ago. This
Mhm.
album gets sent to my fucking house, and it's this dude. Uh, he was on the Howard Stern show. Do you know Howard Stern?
Yeah, I know the name.
So he was a shock jock. So one of the guys on it, Kenny Keith or Kenny Kenneth or something was his name.
Mhm.
And he set this album out and it was fucking terrible. Like probably the not quite the worst thing I'd ever heard, but pretty damn close.
Pretty damn
So,
close.
so whenever we'd have a party, we would talk about some of the worst music we've ever heard.
Yeah,
And I would always put that on. And they're like, it wouldn't get 2 minutes in. And they're like, shut that shit off.
yeah. But I mean, even as a gimmick, right? That he had an audience in you
Yeah. I
for
mean,
2 minutes.
hundreds of people listen to that, listen
Yeah,
to that first 2 minutes and
yeah.
no more. It just kept going downhill like, oh shit.
That's fantastic.
So the album comes out October 4th.
Correct.
With the release, is there like goals or thresholds that you hope that it meets for you guys?
Not in like numbers and statistics. We hope it does well. We hope it does very well. There's been we've talked about. I don't know where this is coming from. Franz, our lead guitar player, he's talking about this all the time. But like the third full length album, that's a big deal for any band. It's like the make or break. He's been talking about it so much, and I've never heard it from like a official standpoint, but it kind of makes sense. You know, the first album, people have no expectations. It's like, okay, this is the new band, whatever. Let me listen. Then on the second album, you're sort of continuing there. We're still here, we're still active, and then with the third one, people have expectations. Hopefully, you've found the sound that you're going for at that
Yeah.
point, so you cannot sort of go in a completely 180 direction with the third album. But still, there has to be development and more to tell, more cohesion. Um, and I feel like we're delivering on all those things. We're super proud of this one, um, and of course, we hope that it does incredibly well. But we just hopefully a lot of people listen to it, and hopefully we get the chance to play it in front of a lot of people, and then we'll take it from there. Uh,
Sounds
but
like
yeah,
you're on that
we're
trajectory
excited.
though, right? Like you're getting there. And I've never heard the third album thing either. Um,
But it makes sense, right? It makes a little
yeah,
bit of sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
because like, what do you say? You've got the first album, which is everyone refers as like typically the band's perfect album because there were no expectations.
Mhm.
And then you've got the sophomore release where you often hear like, oh, they're in a sophomore slump, and it's like, why are they in a slump? Because they tried something new, like, And then the third album is like, hey, we're still fucking here. So I'm with you. I think it does make sense. I've just never heard it either.
No. Isn't something that we've sort of discussed actively as we're putting the album out or writing songs or anything like that. But of course, at least I always tend to think the newest is always better. It's not always true, but with this album, I really feel like it's all. come together in a fantastic way. I I don't think there's a bad track on it, and
I don't either.
it's and like there's a start, there's a finish, and there's like, especially if you dive into like the lyrical universe of it, um, then there's a lot of development going on in there that I know not everyone is going to dive into and appreciate, but if you are one of those people who likes to do that, then I think you will get some more enjoyment on top of what is already hopefully a good album.
Yeah.
Um, so we're super excited to get it out. It's been, I mean, to us, it's almost not the new album anymore, right? Because it's been so long in the making. Um, or I should so long in the release because we've had it for a long time. We finished some of these songs a long time ago, and then we've been in the whole loop of who's going to release it, and then we're so close with this and that, and um, then in the end we just went for a self-release, and that's that. And so with that part, we have something to prove. Hopefully, get the sales numbers up a bit on this one to show that we can do it ourselves.
Well,
Uh,
I think for a band, that's the way to go, is
yeah.
to put it out yourself. I mean, you talk to a lot of bigger bands, and what do? They pay for everything, and then they license it to a label,
Mhm.
so they get the distribution and whatever, but that way, like, you all keep hold of all the rights to publishing
Yeah.
and any royalties that might come in from it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's close now. I mean, it's what, 2 weeks. I'm super
About
super
that, yeah.
looking forward to that. Yeah. And then we'll see if it holds true. If the third album was the make or break thing, we can reconvene in a year and we can conclude on how that went.
Yeah, as you guys are putting out album 4.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we started writing stuff for the next one. Um, yeah, which is good. We have, what do we have now? I think we have 3 weeks until the next show.
Okay.
We have a couple of weeks of focusing on obviously release plans and what goes out when, but also studying material. We have been writing material for the new one for a while, but we haven't played it together, all of us. So we're going to spend the next couple of weeks doing that. There's always the next thing, right?
Always. Like, and I feel like
Yeah,
any band that's going to have some longevity, or some staying power, that's how they do it. They're like, okay, this album's coming out, but we're like, it's cool, we like the album, but we're ready for to hit on whatever that next thing is.
exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
I know it's late for you, and I don't want to keep you up all night. So, um, Benjamin, I'm going to say thank you. I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your night after the kids are asleep to hang out and chat with me.
It's always fun to talk about old death metal stupid riffs,
Yeah.
right? So it was yeah, no, I had a blast.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I really look forward to the album. Do you guys now, since you guys released it yourself, do you have US distribution?
Yes, we do. We have a partner with sending everything out. That's not a problem.
Rock and roll.
We'll get that sorted.
Okay. So I'm going to pre-order the new album.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. I greatly appreciate your time. Hopefully we can get you to the States soon.
Let's work on that. Thank you for
Yes.
yours. Bye.
Bye.